There. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also rise to give my contribution towards this, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. And before I proceed, I have taken note that we do have quite a few preachers in the House. So if anything, I think we should be in a good place. So as I speak, Mr. Speaker, or rather as I give my thoughts on this, I think the most important thing that sticks out to me is the process of how this, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill got to the House of Parliament, both the National Assembly as well as the Senate. My opinion, Mr. Speaker, would be that this is a backdoor kind of popular initiative through Article 257. I have heard the very distinguished minority whip give a very eloquent speech on how as long as you have the 1 million signatures, you should be able to bring a popular initiative. And in some way, yes, I agree with that. But Mr. Speaker, I think there is bad faith as far as this popular initiative. In the fact that we all know, since we are not visitors in Kenya, we have lived in Kenya and we have been seeing what has been going on. This bill was created by two people through something they call a handshake, which I have never understood what it means nor what it brings. And that is what has gotten us to this point, from the handshake through, I think, to something else they call a BBI, whatever that is, and eventually to what they are claiming to be the popular initiative. I believe that the spirit of the Constitution, as well as the framers of this Constitution, could not have envisaged that the President of the Republic, as well as a former Prime Minister, with a party large enough to influence the going on of Parliament, both in the National Assembly and Senate, coming together would then take advantage or use this popular initiative as the vehicle to bring these amendments. I believe the spirit of the Constitution may have been that such, this was more for the Wanjikos out there to be able to bring it here. But that's neither here nor there, but it is my weighted opinion that from the beginning, we have a very messed up unconstitutional bill here. And I will go ahead to explain some of the things that stand out to me and that actually stink. Let me begin. We also have had the issues we have seen and read and actually seen some of those where we have some different county assemblies with different bills from others. We've also been given different ones, that of the Senate as well as that of the National Assembly, which then begs the question as to which, once they are passed by the county assemblies and the one, say, from the Senate and the National Assembly, which one then proceeds to the people for a referendum. It's actually quite interesting to watch as we do things using the back door and then try to sanitize them. Let me begin, Mr. Speaker. I know we have had a lot, very musical, very poetic justifications of why the country is pregnant with a constitutional moment. And I call it bullshit. Okay. It's just an English word. I do not think that we have a constitutional moment in our hands, Mr. Speaker, sir. When someone tells us that the US Constitution was amended 27 times, has so far been amended 27 times, I would like to remind them.
Samahani, Senator Kihika, hiyo lugha ambayo umetumia haikubaliki katika bunge la Seneti, tunakuomba utumie lugha ambayo inakubalika.
Oh, sorry, I'm not speaking in Swahili. That would be traumatic for the House. Maybe in the parliamentary language that would be softer and nicer. I just do not think that we have a constitutional moment at this point. Now, I was talking about the 27 amendments that have been, someone has talked about on the floor, that the US Constitution alone, just as an example, has been amended 27 times. And I would like to remind the distinguished senators saying that the US Constitution has been in place since 1787. So it has taken 234 years to have 27 amendments. And why do I bring that up? To say that we don't need to rush to come up with a constitutional amendment. I believe that at this point in time, our country is facing more difficult, serious issues whose attention we should be focusing on instead of these constitutional amendments that I believe are not a priority at this point in time. So there is no rush. There is some good things in it that perhaps can be discussed as we move on in time, as we reopen it up, because I also do not believe that as a Senate, we cannot change anything, even a comma or a full stop, as we are told. I do not believe that the Constitution would give us time to have public participation or to consult with the public for it to then state that whatever came out of those public participations would not find their way onto the amendments or anything. So I totally disagree with that line of reasoning and join my colleagues who say that yes, we should be able to make amendments, to bring amendments to this amendment. The reason we went through public participation is so that we are able to take all those other issues and also from ourselves that we think should be amended. And also, let's now talk a bit about gender, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have heard the women of this House and the male senators as well very passionately talk, some for and some against. And as a big proponent of gender parity in this parliament and indeed in our country, I feel very strongly that this constitutional amendment has done a disservice to the women of this country. I do not believe that there is anything to celebrate about in this constitutional amendment. I believe that the 47 women representatives, that is the one woman elected per county, that should have been left in place. And let us not combine that with the 47 coming to the Senate. Let us separate those two issues. So I believe that the 47 elected women representatives should have remained in the National Assembly so that they are able to partake in one of the most critical functions that we as women members of parliament should be able to participate in, and that is in the budget-making process. The fact that this constitution amendment proposes that all those 47 women come to the Senate, the reason I disagree with it so much is because we go on to see that the constitutional amendment also proposes, assuming it passes, despite not having my vote. So assuming it passes, it creates the office of the Prime Minister that will be domiciled in the National Assembly. It creates the office of the Deputy Prime Minister that will be domiciled in the National Assembly. It creates the offices of the CSs, or the Cabinet Ministers. And it also creates the offices of the Deputy Ministers and the office of the Attorney General. Colleagues, by bringing those elected women to the Senate, you take away the only chance that they have of being able to be appointed ministers in this country. You take away the chances that they have of being able to be appointed deputy prime ministers or cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, and the Attorney General of this country. Now, we could be lying to ourselves and saying that enough women will be elected so that from those elected in the single constituency seats, they will be able to participate in that. But my question would be, that is not guaranteed. At least the 47 are guaranteed. What we shall have a lot of is nominated women in the National Assembly. And my belief is that there is some mischief in this constitutional amendment. Somebody somewhere wants to load the National Assembly with nominated women so that they can use them as flower girls. And the reason I say that so clearly, without fear, is because we have seen that happen in this House of the Senate. I have seen Senator Omanga in this House of the Senate being called by the party and being unfairly disciplined because she did not take a position that she did not agree with. I have seen that happen to Senator Falhada as well. I have seen it happen to Senator Mary Senator. I have seen it happen to Senator Prengei, my senator from Nakuru County. I have also seen it happen to our speaker from the speaker's panel, the speaker now on the chair, Senator Mwaura. I have also seen it happen to Senator Canon Naomi Wako. I have seen it where we are called for a meeting by the party, and even I did not attend those meetings. But because I'm elected, there is not a thing that the party could do. But the only thing that the party could do is then come for the nominated senators, try to gag them, discipline them, and now they are actually in court and have been going through the court process. So my belief is that somebody wants to load the National Assembly with nominated women so that they can have flower girls there and so that they can be able then to continue running this country as a kiosk. So that when they decide they want to extend their term, they have enough flower girls to do that, whom they can gag and make sure that they vote in the way that they want to vote. So my suggestion is that the 47 women remain in the National Assembly, in addition to those who will be elected in the single constituencies, because I'm sure there will be a few. We have about 23 right now. So hopefully that number will increase given the additional constituencies, and then do a top-up on top of that. But I also have an issue with the top-up. According to clause 13 of this constitutional amendment, they have a sunset clause, which then does away with the affirmative action seats, the top-up seats, after 15 years. My question then would be, what exactly do they anticipate that will happen in this country as far as gender equality in 15 years? I don't think the needle will have moved much. So I think it's an exercise that will only give a little to pass this and then take it away in 15 years, and we shall continue having the very few numbers that we have. Now, in the United States of America, only 34% of women, in the United States of America, in the House of Representatives, there are only 23.6% women. And that I'm talking about a house that has been in existence for 232 years. So they've only achieved 23.6% women representation. In the Senate, the upper house, they only have 25%, which is 25 senators out of 100 senators. That is in 232 years. In the Parliament of the UK, they only have 34% women in the House of Commons and only 28% in the House of Lords. And this is a parliament that has been in existence since the 13th century. I want us to internalize that. So by telling us that you will take away through the sunset clause in 15 years these top-up seats, then you're just setting us up to fail. And that is why I feel as though they are giving on one hand and taking away in the other. Because at least for right now, we have those seats such as the women representative seats, which do not have sunset clause. And why is it that it's only the women's seats that are traded around? Why couldn't they add the 47 to the Senate, but also leave the 47 at the National Assembly level? I also heard some senators here talking in a very condescending manner about the women in the National Assembly who have GAF, which is the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and talking about their only being able to buy tents and chairs. My friends, for the women in the rural areas, those tents and chairs and the bursaries that they get from their women representatives mean a great deal. The 8 million shillings per constituency is a lot better than the zero that they will have in this house. So the women are able to be empowered a little bit with that little than the zero that is here. And maybe in the next cycle or two, they are able to run for the single constituency, the Senate, or even the governor's seats. So let us not take away what they have and bring them here where there is zero and where we know how hard it is to maintain these seats without anything. They've talked a lot about the oversight fund that should come here. And I want to say these guys must be visitors in Jerusalem. We have been here, we have been fighting for the oversight fund. And the same principals who are helping them bring this amendment have not had good faith enough to be able to help us pass that or get that. So let us not give the rabbit or whatever it is that's in the hand for two that are in the bush. So what I propose is that those in the National Assembly with the GAF stay there and then add more women to the Senate, because I also believe that they should be able to vote and not be used as flower girls, like we have seen in the last few instances. And we do not need a constitutional amendment to get the 2/3 gender principle in place if only the two handshakers, who are the principals, who are the ones who determine how parliament votes, who have helped in capturing this parliament, if they had enough goodwill towards the women folk of this country, they would call their members of parliament, be it the National Assembly, they would call their senators, and the 2/3 gender bill would pass in the morning. By 10 a.m. we would have that passed. But because there is no goodwill, they want to dangle some carrots that we know are of no value to us. They add no value. And I also take this opportunity to congratulate Senator Kavindu from Machakos, because she has helped this house become 2/3 gender principle compliant. So I'm very, very happy for that, and more women should be empowered. And thank you very much, and I wish you very well as you continue serving those of Machakos. So as I conclude, as I can see my light is on, let me talk about this issue of the politics of us versus them that this BBI pretends, or this constitutional amendment bill pretends to want to cure. We live and we are in a democracy. Our politics is of a democracy. You win, you take the government, you lose, you go home and wait for the next time around. We do not need a constitutional amendment to appease the loser. You go work hard, build a coalition, and come back the next time. We saw in the US Congress, actually in the US Capitol, back on the 6th of June 2021, where there was an insurrection and a mob that rioted and wanted to go ahead by force and reverse the win of President Joe Biden, because these rioters were the supporters of former President Trump. But what we saw is what needs to happen here. There is no room and there is no day that the person who loses can then take power by force. What should happen is, if you lose, you go back, take an account of what it is that went wrong, and then try to do better next time. And if you're lucky, then you take over. But you cannot tell us that we need to amend the Constitution to appease two people. It is their problems and not the problem of this country. So I completely disagree with that we need a constitutional amendment to avert bitterly contested elections. That, my friends, is the nature of democracy. And if you're not up to it, then stay away from the kitchen. Don't run for anything, go sell ice cream. That may be the best career. So for right now, as far as the 35% to the counties, we know that right now 15% under the Constitution is the floor and not the ceiling. So if the government had goodwill, it would give the counties even 40%. My point being, yes, in time, it would be good to put it in the Constitution. But right now, it is not a priority. The government can give more. The government is broke. The government has even been unable to give 15% to the counties as we stand. They are owed almost 100 billion. So when you talk to me about quickly putting 35% in the Constitution, first show goodwill by giving the 15%, and then next year maybe put 20% or 25%, and then I'll believe that you can do it. We had a ward development fund by Senator Kangata of Muranga. If we really have goodwill and we wanted to make sure that we entrench that devolution and come up with a ward development fund, the two handshaker principals can call their MPs, and the ward development fund would not be gathering dust in the National Assembly, but instead would be passed, and we would not need to be discussing that as a constitutional amendment, because it would be in the law. I do support the county assemblies controlling their own funds and not being controlled by governors. As a former speaker, I know how crazy that gets, as governors then use that as a stick and carrot. So that we could do as a legislation by both the National Assembly and the Senate. So I do not believe there is anything urgent at this point in time requiring a constitutional amendment. So I stand here to oppose this constitutional amendment. There is some good things in it, but even if you bake a nice cake with a little bit of poison, it's still gonna kill me, so I'm not gonna take it. I oppose. Thank you.
Asante sana kwa mchango wako, Senator Susan Kihika kutoka Nakuru. Senator Mary Senator kwenye mtandao.